The Chinese regime claims it's beating the coronavirus, but that might not be true. China could see a second wave of infections, and they already know who to blame. Welcome back to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. The coronavirus is now spreading across the globe, or as I'm now calling it, the CCP coronavirus. That's because it wouldn't be spreading across the globe if the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, hadn't covered it up for 6 weeks starting in early December. The CCP's incompetence endangered the world. But that article is more than a month old now. The new narrative we're all supposed to believe is that the Chinese Communist Party is winning the battle against the coronavirus in China. That's why on March 10th, Chinese leader Xi Jinping visited Wuhan, the epicenter of the outbreak. This footage was broadcast on Chinese state television and also pushed to Western media outlets like Reuters, who repeated the same propaganda.
His arrival in the city where coronavirus is understood to have taken hold late last year could suggest China is about to declare victory in the battle.
Wow, Xi Jinping must be really confident that the virus has been defeated. At least you'd think that if you didn't know that he never actually visited hospital workers in Wuhan. He was talking to them through a screen, which he also did not touch. A week or so later, state-run media reported that Wuhan saw no new cases of the coronavirus. This is important news. It supports the Chinese Communist Party's propaganda narrative that they have defeated the coronavirus. And this allows them to position themselves as the global leader in helping other countries fight the pandemic. State-run China Daily has even created an official website dedicated to misinforming the public about how to fight the coronavirus the Chinese way. And guess what? It's working! Gosh, Italy, you're so smart to listen to the Chinese Communist Party. Please, ignore how their incompetence is the reason your citizens got infected in the first place. In fact, Chinese authorities are so confident that they can make people believe that China is saving the world that they're proposing a new Health Silk Road to go along with everyone's favorite Belt and Road initiative. But the Communist Party's new propaganda narrative that it's beating the coronavirus is going to backfire. China is most likely going to see a second wave of the coronavirus outbreak. Maybe they already have, and we just aren't being told about it. See, during the CCP coronavirus outbreak, half of China was put on some sort of lockdown. People weren't going to work. The Chinese economy has been shrinking badly. But an economic slowdown threatens the CCP's legitimacy, which is based on the promise of making people rich. So, the CCP is now facing a tough choice. Continue strict safety measures to protect the people, or tell them to resume work to protect the CCP. Just kidding, it wasn't a tough choice. Factories have started reopening, and some local governments have been installing mandatory productivity quotas. But the problem with telling hundreds of millions of people to get back to work is that it gives the CCP coronavirus a chance to spread again. But if a second wave of infections happens or has already begun to happen, they'll try to cover it up. Remember, you can't trust statistics from the Chinese authorities. Each level of an authoritarian government is incentivized to downplay bad news. So when they say they have no new infections, it's hard to know if that's true. The Chinese Communist Party's current narrative is that they're well on the way to winning the people's war against the coronavirus. So when the second wave comes, they're just going to do what they did before. Cover it up, and arrest doctors, and silence whistleblowers. This is how the CCP operates. You can't teach an old bear new tricks. The new wave of the CCP coronavirus could already be happening in China. This study, published based on Chinese data, suggests that for every confirmed infection, there are another 5 to 10 people whose infections haven't been detected. But this is potentially a huge problem. The study says that during the early days of the outbreak in China, undocumented infections were the infection source for 79% of documented cases. In other words, what we don't know will hurt us. It will hurt everybody. Just wait till a bunch of Chinese Communist Party officials start getting the coronavirus. Then maybe we'll see those safety measures put back in place. And they won't blame themselves. The Communist Party will just spin a new narrative, like blaming the rest of the world for infecting China. In fact, they may already be laying the groundwork for that narrative. China confirmed it had no new domestic cases on Wednesday, but it reported 34 new cases among people who recently returned to China. I really hope a second wave of infections doesn't come to China. But if it does, we may be able to see it by looking at what they are starting to call imported cases. And we'll see the narrative shift to blame outsiders. They'll blame people coming to China from all those countries that haven't properly followed the Communist Party's scientifically proven techniques for beating the coronavirus. Next, I'll answer a question from one of our supporters on Patreon, one of the folks who contributes to China Uncensored directly so we can keep making episodes like this. So today's question comes from David Leah Smith. The Chinese government owns a lot of foreign debt, especially U.S. government bonds. Given that the CCP will be responsible for thousands of deaths overseas and trillions in lost wealth due to their mishandling of COVID-19 and the animal markets where it likely originated, is there a mechanism by which foreign governments can pass the bill to China by canceling debt they owe to the Chinese government? This also seems like an appropriate punishment. Good question, David. The Chinese government owns about $1 trillion of U.S. debt. In theory, the U.S. government could say that they won't pay back any U.S. Treasury bonds held by the Chinese government. But the U.S. government would never do this. It's too dangerous. The U.S. has a proud history for more than 200 years of never defaulting on its debt. That's why Americans and people around the world continue to buy U.S. debt at low interest rates. It also allows Congress to spend limitless amounts of money by raising the debt ceiling. So it's not worth $1 trillion just to punish the Chinese regime. Also, if we did that, the Chinese regime would fight back. And they play dirty. They have tools they could use to tank the U.S. stock market, or interrupt our electricity grid, or a bunch of other things we don't even know about. This is not a game we want to play. The best solution is not to explicitly punish the Chinese regime, but to get U.S. companies to stop manufacturing stuff in China, and to gradually decouple the U.S. and Chinese economies. Then at least we won't be propping up that regime with our money. Thanks for your question, David. And thank you to everyone for watching. Be like David and go to patreon.com/ChinaUncensored. Contribute $1 or more per episode so we can continue to cover the coronavirus, despite getting demonetized by YouTube. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.